Welcome and thanks for joining us today. With Brooke, we'll run a short session about emulsifiers. My name is Beatriz. I am the cosmetic scientist here at Formula Botanica. I'll let Brooke introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Brooke and Beatriz and I'm the formulation tutor at Formula Botanica, and me and Beatriz both work in the education team, working on the materials and generally just sort of supporting our students through their journey, and we're going to chat to you a bit about emulsifiers today. And before we get started, I want to know if any of you have used an emulsifier before. If you have, how did it go? What did you use it for? Did you make a cream or was it for something else? And if you have any tips as we're going along, we've got some tips to share with you. But if you have any of your own to share, please put them in the comments and we will put them on the screen to share with everyone as well.
And today we are here to discuss what an emulsifier is and share some of our top tips to work with emulsifiers. But first, let's start with what is an emulsifier. So emulsifiers are special ingredients that help mix water and oil together in a formulation. Normally, water and oil don't get along, they separate. So to help blend them, we use emulsifiers, which are unique substances with a water-loving head and an oil-loving tail. And this dual nature allows them to connect with both water and oil, helping them blend together in a formulation. So instead of separating, they unite to create a stable and consistent texture. This is essential for skincare formulations like creams and lotions and other types of emulsions. So today we are here to give 5 top tips on using emulsifiers. So the first one is knowing what kind of emulsifier to use when creating your formulation.
Absolutely. So this is a really good one to get started with because, as some of you might know, some of you might not, there are different kinds of emulsifiers that create different types of emulsions. So you have an oil and water emulsifier and a water and oil emulsifier. And these will create different kinds of emulsions with different kinds of structures that have then different textures, they have different benefits. And it's important to know which kind of emulsifier you're working with so that you can get the most out of the ingredients and get the right kind of emulsifier for what it is you want to make. So your water and oil emulsions tend to have a richer texture because their water is the outer phase. Got that right way around? Yep. The water is the outer phase, and they tend to have a richer texture that's quite thick, and that can be too heavy sometimes for some people's skins, but it is really good, especially for things like foot creams or something where you want a bit more richness. And then oil and waters emulsions are something that tend to be a little bit lighter, and they're really quite versatile as to whether you want to use them for face products or body products. But it's really important to know that the emulsifier you're choosing to work with, which kind of emulsion that creates, because when you're then designing your product, you need to know that going forward, because that means that you can create the product with that in mind, and it's going to give you the best product at the end of your formulation.
Yeah, exactly. And just to explain a little bit about what means water in oil or oil in water. Oil in water, emulsifiers make formulations where oil droplets are dispersed in a water base. So you have small droplets of oil in water. And as Brooke said, these are lightweight emulsions. And on the other side, we have water in oil emulsifiers, where we'll have small water droplets surrounded by oil. So these are richer and more dense. And well, let's go to tip 2. And next one is about beeswax. And it's about beeswax is not an emulsifier. Many people believe that beeswax works as an emulsifier, but actually it is not. It is just a wax. And just a trivia about this, this conception came from a long time ago, where beeswax was mixed with a compound called borax, which reacts with beeswax, forming an emulsifier. So beeswax was used to create this emulsifier, but this happens when you're formulating. So many people thought that beeswax was the emulsifier, but actually it only works as an emulsifier because it's reacting with other compounds. And nowadays it isn't used anymore because borax is considered toxic. so it's no longer used in cosmetic formulations. And that's why many people think that beeswax works as an emulsifier, but actually it is just a wax and works as a thickener.
It's good to know, actually, because I've always known that beeswax is not an emulsifier, but it's interesting to see where that came from. I didn't know that. So there you go. Even I'm learning something today.
Yeah.
So
And our go on.
our third tip then is that cetioyl alcohol is also not a standalone emulsifier. And this is an important thing to note, is that we said standalone because cetioyl alcohol is part of a group of what's called co-emulsifiers. This includes your cetyl alcohol, cetioyl alcohol, and lots of different other co-emulsifiers, and they work fantastically well at improving your emulsion's texture. They can help with the viscosity, they can help make some really elegant emulsions, but you can't use it as an emulsifier by itself. So if you don't have any other emulsifying compounds in there, like your Olivem 1000 or your glyceryl stearate standalone or your vegetal, you would need a standalone emulsifier like that to perform the act of joining your oil and water together. And then you're going to have your co-emulsifiers, which then boost your final product. They don't work on their own. So a lot of people, when they first get started, they see that cetioyl alcohol is used in emulsions and considered an emulsifier, but it's not a standalone emulsifier, so it won't do that work of joining the oil and water molecules together by itself. So it's a good thing to note down, of making sure that when you're looking at ingredients and you're researching them, you're understanding, is it a standalone emulsifier or is it one that is used in conjunction with other things?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it is part of the composition of some emulsifiers because it helps improve stability of emulsions too. But as you said, it isn't a standalone emulsifier. And for our fourth tip, pay attention to the ratios because each emulsifier has proper ratios of use. And while our rule of thumb is to start with 1 part of emulsifier to 4 parts of oil phase, this does not apply to every emulsifier, so you need to check the technical materials with your manufacturer or supplier to check the proper ratios of emulsifier to oil for you to be able to create stable emulsions. Very often people get this wrong and end up with a split emulsion because they use too much oil or very little emulsifier, so you need to get this right.
It's often more important when you're designing formulations that you get that ratio right rather than a specific number, because saying perhaps that your emulsifier might emulsify 25% oil, that's dependent on how much emulsifier is in there. So it might emulsify 25% oil with 6% emulsifier, but if you're only adding 3% emulsifier in there, it might not manage all 25% of that. So when you're designing your formulas and you're looking into emulsifiers, you need to make sure that you have that ratio right.
Yeah.
And that feeds then as well very nicely into our top tip number 5, which is to check details with your manufacturer to get the best performance out of your ingredients. And by this we mean going to the supplier of your ingredient and also the manufacturer of the ingredient. So sometimes, especially with emulsifiers in particular, they are made by different manufacturers and then sold and fulfilled by a supplier, and they're not the same company that created the emulsifier that is necessarily selling them. Sometimes you can get it direct from the manufacturer, but not always. Often in our small amounts, you would get it from a secondary supplier. So your supplier should be able to give you details on the majority of what you need to know. What is the ratio that it's used for? What kind of emulsifier is it? All of that should come from the supplier. But if for some reason you can't get some of that, then you need to go then directly to your manufacturer, and they usually post up the brochures for the ingredients on their websites. They're usually really easy to get, and if not, you can always email them and ask for the details as well. But it's always worth checking to make sure you have that brochure, make sure you have the details that you need to be able to work with the emulsifier to get the best out of it. Because if you're, as we've covered, if you're using it perhaps as it's not a standalone emulsifier, or you're getting the emulsion ratios wrong, you might end up with split emulsions, and then that can lead to stability issues as well long term. So it's best to do your research beforehand when you start formulating so that you know what it is you're working with.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't lose your materials, because we know that these are expensive sometimes.
It's a shame
And
sometimes to have to
also,
waste them, isn't it?
yeah, and also you can find information about incompatibilities, if there's any ingredients that can't be used with that emulsifier. Some emulsifiers can't handle electrolytes, for example. So there are lots of details that you find in these technical materials. And I think that's our 5 top tips.
Yes.
And just saying, don't be scared of using emulsifiers. We can show you how and why you should be using them in our upcoming masterclass. You can start by checking out some of our blog posts, which the team will share in the comments for you. And if you like to challenge yourself, please join us for our masterclass. You can sign up from Monday, 4th September. So look out for a link to join in this group on that day. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Yes, thank you
And
everyone, and make sure to have fun with your formulations, whatever level you're working at, whether you've never tried an emulsifier before or whether you've done it a few times and you want a bit more information. Have fun with it, because they are really, really fun things to play around with.
yeah, just a minute before we leave, there's someone here. I can see your name. I'm sorry, it's just Facebook user here in our platform. Um, this person is saying, I do get scared about them, but I need to elevate my brand now. So join our masterclass so you can start using emulsifiers. You see, it's easy and fun, and you should try them to lose your fear. And you see that when you get the handle of it, you run with your brand.
The emulsifiers are definitely nothing to be scared of. They seem a little bit daunting to get started with, but if you break it down step by step, as we do in the masterclass, it's something that you eventually overcome that fear of. And once you've seen it done once you've created your first emulsion, you think, I can do this. And it's something that you get the hang of. And as soon as you get over that fear, as soon as you get over that hope, over that hump, sorry, you will just be away with them, and you can have fun creating all different kinds of emulsions for your brand.
So see you next time. And thank you, Brooke, for joining me today.
Thank you for hosting me, and thank
See
you
you
everyone for
around.
joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.